Apparently, Erik has been cooking up some new Zerg build orders. What I've got for you today are 2 replays he recently posted on the All Things Zerg Discord server. And from what I understand, he decides to go for the same strategy twice in a row, but he goes for a different follow-up. So I'm excited to find out exactly what ended up going down in these games. I'm assuming these are ladder matches, because probably makes the most sense. They're against different opponents. But first off, in the top left-hand corner of Dragon Skills, playing right here with the blue Zerg drones and already going for that extractor trick, we have Erik. Now following this up with a 15 supply hatchery on the low ground. Cyril has actually been talking about this particular build. I'll get to that in just a moment. His opponent in the opposite corner with the red Terran SCVs, he goes by the name of Aquaron. Aquaron, I just had a quick look at his Liquipedia page, as I'm probably going to keep the camera here primarily on Erik. Apparently, Aquaron started playing StarCraft 2 at the age of 9. He reached Masters League at the age of 11 and Grandmasters at 13. That's kind of sick. That's kind of awesome. Anyways, so here's the build. Erik extractor tricks out 1 additional drone, goes for a hatchery at 15 supply. Then he extractor tricks out another drone after, you know, making one in between. And then he decides to go for an overlord as well as a spawning pool. Cyril commented on this particular build, saying that it's good, especially in the Zerg versus Protoss matchup, because in ZVP, we obviously have the hedge block meta right now, where a lot of Protoss players decide to block the Zergs in natural expansion. He's apparently run the numbers, and the losses are minimal. It's worth the economic trade-off if you can guarantee that the hatchery does not get blocked. There are, however, a couple of maps where if Protoss decides to send the probe right at the very start of the game, they can even block a hatchery at 15 supply. So Cyril's saying that maybe a 14 supply hatchery is superior. Anyways, it is kind of cool, since Erik is a 6k MMR Zerg player right now, give or take. I think maybe a little bit higher some days. It is kind of cool that guys like Cyril are, you know, studying some of these replays too, and they're also having a closer look at exactly what is going on in the games. So, the main advantage, right, of going for this particular start over the, well, more conventional builds that Zerg players usually go for. So, look at this. He's decided to go for a group of Zerglings. Normally, you need to keep the Lynx at home against the Reaper. However, well, I mean, you don't really need any Zerglings against this particular Reaper start, because the Queens, they pop about 10 seconds earlier than they normally do. Dragon Skills is also not a map with a particularly, you know, long rush distance. It's not like this Reaper had to travel a very long duration. The Queens just simply pop much earlier, so even though you do take a small economical hit early on, you don't really need to make Zerglings for the defense. Now, apparently, we can make Zerglings for the offense this time around, so Aquaron actually gets his command center delayed a little bit here. That is going to be very annoying. That's now already forcing this Reaper all the way back home. A second SCV got sniped as well, and the command center is still not done. This is really annoying, actually, for the Terran player. So already, this is a cute beginning right here for the Zerg, and not something we do really see in the ZVT matchup at the highest level of play. I guess what Terran should have done is, by seeing the timing on the Queens, he should have probably sent the Reaper straight back home, just on the off chance that there were Lynx out on the map. But it's hard to say, right? So that effectively, I guess, once again, reduces the need to have defensive Zerglings, which is really, really cool. Anyhow, obviously the main downside of an opener like this is that you just don't have the money to go for a very quick third base. So the third will be starting up right now. Erik decided, though, hold up, actually. He decided, yeah, to skip the Zergling speed upgrade, and he decides to go straight into the lair. So the man is going a lair into a Roach Warren with his first 100 gas. At this point, is there really a whole lot that Terran can do against this sort of thing? Honestly, not really, since there are 4 Queens available. Maybe you could put some pressure on the third hatchery. That is certainly an opportunity for the Terran player. But in this particular game, yeah, Aquaron is just trying to play this safe. The thing is, he just scouted. We've got Overlord speed coming up too. He just scouted that his opponent went for a very quick Roach Warren. And 9 times out of 10, that means that you're gonna be going up against a Zerg player who's going for a Roach attack. I believe that that is not the case in this particular game. From what I understand, at least by reading the description that Erik wrote on Discord, maybe we're still going to put pressure on with the Roaches? Maybe that's the plan. Actually, he's making a lot of Roaches, so I do think he's actually going to try and do a little bit of that indeed. Yeah, okay. I do think he's going to try and march up the ramp, but he probably won't get too much done. This, apparently, is what this strategy has been leading up to. So we've had the interesting beginning, the interesting early game build order, but this is the follow-up that he's been experimenting with. And this is not something we've really seen ever since TLO first started playing StarCraft 2 back in 2010, okay? At least that's what it feels like. Apparently this is a build order designed to block the opponent's third base. Now, of course, this is something that has happened in the past, but I haven't seen this in a very long time. Hellion drive-by right now, going into the main base as well, trying to be annoying. The thing is, right, you can't really compare StarCraft 2 in 2023 with StarCraft 2 from like 2010. Yeah, so the roaches aren't really here for pressure, they're mostly to escort the queens, which in a way is really cute. This is an entirely different era of StarCraft that we are in right now. If you were to compare this at least to the early days, it's just an entirely different game. And to see a build order like this once again come back, I mean, it's never been particularly popular, is really cool to see. Yeah, so this is honestly incredibly annoying for the Terran. So Terran at this point is playing pretty defensively. He's seen a little bit of creep over here. That is annoying. But is there really a whole lot that he can do about this? So Acheron has got a third CC. He may very well consider planting it down here in a moment, but it's gonna be difficult to pull off. He's gonna need a couple of scans at the very least to get it all done, but most of the time you don't have that much energy available in your orbital commands. So now Erik is finally really properly saturating his third base. So the eco hit, it's significant. It certainly is. Yeah, not to be underestimated, but the fact that Terran now can't really expand. Look at Acheron looking around here, trying his best to figure out what's happening. We're spreading creep tumors backwards as well, by the way, so the creep is gonna eventually, I mean, if he's given enough time at the very least, it is gonna connect in with the creep that already was spreading forward from those same queens earlier on into the game. So the follow-up right here is Link Speed, together with Bane Speed, together with +1/+1 over here as well. Okay. So 6k MMR, for those of you unfamiliar, is really good, but not quite. It's like, okay, this is gonna sound mean, okay, but it's like bottom tier pro gamer MMR, I would say. There are most of the top tier players, like for example, guys like Serral. Serral has peaked at like 7.5k MMR. The upper echelons of the StarCraft 2 pros, they have about 7k MMR. But a lot of the pros, a lot of the names you'll recognize are sitting at like 7.4, 7.5, or 7.4, 6.4, 6.5, maybe 6.3 or so. So it's certainly high level, but it's not quite at the level yet where we can really, yeah, start seeing the big names, you know, face off against these sort of strategies super regularly. So that's what makes it so difficult to judge, right? Like, these are players that are very good at, well, I guess that's what we've been seeing over the last couple of videos where I've featured Erik. First off, he went up against Dark, and then he went up against Gumiho as well. It's always hard to say, though, if the reason why these strats work is because they're actually good, or because the opponents have never seen the build order before. You know what I mean? Like, just because a strategy works once doesn't necessarily mean that it's a great build. Now, obviously, there's not a lot of, at least in 2023, there's not that much experimentation anymore, because we all assume that the game is quote-unquote figured out. But I think games like this, and the strategies that we've been seeing coming out of Erik over the last couple of weeks, yeah, they really show us that there is still a lot of room for experimentation, even when it comes to the first couple of minutes. Like, everybody is going 16 hatch, 18 gas, 17 spawning pool. But now Erik is going 15 hatch, 15 overlord, 15 spawning pool into a lair first rather than link speed, and then into a creep drop. This is essentially a creep tumor timing attack, right? Like, eventually Terran has secured the base, by the way. But, yeah, not necessarily in the way that he originally intended on doing so. Basically what I'm getting at, though, is that I would love to see, you know, guys like Dark, guys like Solar, like Raynor, like Lambo, like Serral, give these sort of builds a try as well. That would be amazing. Now, I'm sure they have, by the way. There's no way that they haven't given this a try yet. I guess what I'm really hoping for is that they're gonna give it a try in tournament matches as well. What's cool about this, though, is that we don't really have a... So always in the history of StarCraft 2, the Zerg build orders, they've always had a similar approach, right? So they've always tried to make use of that larva mechanic to try and power out as many drones as possible, right? So Zergs have basically always opted to try and take the economical advantage rather than what, for example, Protoss like to do, and that's focus on the tech advantage, right? So Protoss players, generally speaking, they will be focusing on higher tier units faster, whereas Zerg players stick around on that low tech for a long time. Erik is doing interesting things in the early game with his first couple of structures, but then his follow-ups are also different, where he doesn't focus on the third base as aggressively, because he can't, because of the early game build, right? You can't really do all of the 15 hatch and the 15 pool shenanigans, and then at the same time also take a really quick third. You just run out of juice because you don't get as many drones early on. But then the follow-up is a tech advantage rather than an economy advantage, which is interesting to see because it seems surprisingly effective. Right now we're going ultimately into Ultra Ling Bane with Vipers for support, but the way we've gotten there is very different. Can we see some Blinding Clouds? Oh, we're gonna go Blinding Clouds on the Marines and the Marauders instead. I'm not entirely sure if I agree with that move. Either way, the base over here in the top right-hand corner has been denied, and Acheron does have a 4th command center that he can secure right now. Terran, though, yeah, is gonna start running out of minerals very quickly here. So this base is now an absolute necessity. I would love to see him try and take the high ground base as well, maybe the one on the right side, because he's gonna need some of that. Drop over here does get denied. Fair enough. But that's mostly because the attention here, I think, was on the left side of the map. We should have Ultras now. Yeah, there's 3 Ultralisks available. Terran is not really in a state of mind here to make that transition very quickly. Oh, he does get the hatch. Nicely done. He's not really in a position where he can go for ghosts very easily, so only just now is when that 4th command center was secured. Usually, Terrans need 4 base eco to properly start making all of those ghosts. Which means that if these bases get denied for long enough, suddenly Ultras are absolutely terrifying. I think he can actually just win the game here. Am I wrong? That is a lot of SCVs going down. Yeah, that is a lot of SCVs going down for sure. There's more Ultras. So we do have the Ghost Academy done here. And Ghosts are going to be hitting the battlefield very shortly, but Ghosts just by themselves aren't particularly great, right? You need something else as well to buffer for them. So Links and Banes are going to be fantastic right here for Erik. Acheron decides to go for the expansion here in the bottom left-hand corner. I've got a feeling we should really just have, I don't know, Burrow or something here to make sure that these expansions don't go up unscouted. Because if this can morph into a planetary fortress unforeseen, that would actually kind of suck. Anyways, Pathogen Glance coming up right now as well for the Zerg player. 5 ghosts on the production tab. Links over here trying their best. They have to go around the debris here. Planetary Fortress gets denied for a little bit, and, well, it now gets blown up, which is fair enough. There is that other command center in the bottom left-hand corner, but there's Links also now at the 3rd base once again. So the worker count is quickly dropping here on the side of Terran. That being said, though, Acheron still has a very scary army. He's now at 117 army supply versus 106. He's got maxed upgrades here. I actually believe he can go for an all-out attack if he wants to. There's a Medevac drop ready to head on over towards the top right. I think that's good to create a bit of a distraction. But I wouldn't mind seeing one big bulldozer attack here from the Terran straight through the center of the map. Planetary is finishing up here in the bottom left-hand corner. And that's maybe where we see that small difference, right? So what do the top-of-the-line pros do better than, like, your quote-unquote bottom-tier pros? They're faster overall. They're just more crisp on every execution. There's no way if this was any of those Zergs that I mentioned earlier, if it was any of them, there's no way that this base would have gone up. They would have checked for that. It would have been considered a massive mistake. There's a Raven right now in the mix, so Acheron actually making the right call there. Obviously, there has been a lot of creep already in this game. Okay, you know what? This is actually starting to lay down quite a bit of pressure, but Zerg is gonna collapse on top of this. Here's those Infestors. Do they have Neural Parasite? They don't. So instead, they decide to go... Oh my god, they're hunting for fungals here. It's a little bit awkward. Can we see a fungal? No, we won't, because an EMP actually connected. Erik is starting to lose a lot of juice. Excellent engagement right there by Acheron, making the best of a very difficult scenario. His expansions are disconnected, but Erik at this point is making the assumption that this is essentially just like, well, a complete all-in here from the Terran, but Erik has got that base, or sorry, Acheron has got that base in the bottom left-hand corner taken, and he's actually mining a decent amount. Not as much as the Zerg, maybe. If he targets the base, he can certainly get it, and he will. He's gonna pick up and get on out of there. 78 drones remain right now for our Zerg player. Yeah, I think he wanted to go for Neural Parasite on the siege tanks. I guess the top-of-the-line Zergs and the top-of-the-line pros in general are closer to perfection, you know what I mean? That's the main thing. And it turns out... Okay, screw that Baneling in particular. It turns out that, yeah, it's very difficult to play a perfect game of StarCraft 2. Anyways, these Zergling run-bys are lethal, though. Dealing a lot of damage. Hold position here as well to finish off a couple more of those SCVs. Fair enough. The majority of the mules do stay alive. I think Erik is gonna find out about this base right now, since he sees an SCV transfer in that direction. This expansion should have never gone up in the first place. We're now not really in a position, though, to sacrifice Banes anymore. Terran, in the meantime, just accepting the fate of that expansion in the bottom left, and we're gonna send on a group of Marines and Marauders and Medivacs to the top right-hand corner. Couple of Spine Crawlers, though, here, trying to be as annoying as possible. And Zerglings without support aren't really going to be able to achieve too much. But I think that Acheron is starting to run out here. I mean, he still has enough to sustain these attacks. He just doesn't have that very scary army anymore. A good chunk of SCVs has gone down here. 69 in total. Nice. And I think it's rinse and repeat right now for Erik. More Ultras. More Lings and Banes. And a stupid amount of creep spread. Okay, so I think the most interesting part of this game was I would say like the first 10 minutes or so, right? Maybe the late game could still use a little bit of improvement, but I really love the fact that we had third bases denied with creep tumors, and the fact that, well, obviously we had that interesting beginning as well in the earlier stages of the game. Here we go, Erik. Ready to shut down this army once and for all. I think this is going to be the last group of units that Terran can properly produce. There's still a lot of money available here, though. Really for both players. But I think there's enough here for the Zerg. Yeah, these units are incredibly well upgraded. GG is called, and it's indeed Erik who obtains the victory. Okay, so our next game is once again on Dragon Skills. This time around, though, the opponent is a Terran player called Sadboy. He's playing yellow. So if he's playing yellow, that can only... I don't know who this is, but it can only mean that... Well, it's a custom game. You can't actually set up yellow as your default color in a ladder game. At least not for the replay. Okay, so let's have a closer look at exactly what this strategy is. So... Hatchery at 15 supply, right? Do we rally this drone? We do rally this drone. Okay. So, this drone will become the 15 supply hatch. We then go for another extractor trick to get an overlord out. At least that's what he did in the previous game. So we go one drone over here, obviously canceling the extractor to get one more supply. Then I'm assuming an overlord next again. Okay. You would imagine that the spawning pool quicker is critical here, but I guess it doesn't line up properly otherwise. So I think we're now going for a, spawning pool next. So the spawning pool timing is really not that different. I guess the timing, well, it's probably about, actually it's probably like 15 seconds quicker than a standard pool timing in this matchup. The main advantage, I guess, is that this gets the queens out a little bit faster. I'm curious to see if he's once again gonna go for a group of Zerglings and send those across the map. But I'm not exactly sure. In the meantime, our Terran player going for a very normal build here so far. I'm not familiar with Sadboy, by the way. It could be someone's alternate ID, I'm not sure. He had the Grandmaster League ranking, the Grandmaster League border, when this replay loaded up. So I'm assuming Sadboy is gonna be a pretty darn, good Terran player. Okay, so double queen once again coming up. This time around, no set of Zerglings. So I'm interested to see how this is gonna play out, actually. So we're gonna have the Reaper go across the map. I actually don't know if Erik even really needs any links in these type of openers. I don't think so. So normally you have to make 4 Zerglings, essentially just to buy time until your queens are done. The queens really are the units that prevent the Reaper from dealing damage. So here's the Reaper coming in. Queens are gonna spawn in about 5 seconds. The drones do need to be microed for a little bit. Okay. Double inject, double queen on the back of this too. If you're a real StarCraft boomer, this is giving me very strong Spinishio build vibes. Do you guys remember, what do you call it, the Ice Fisher build or something? Not exactly sure, something like that. But Spinishio was one of the very first Zerg players who popularized playing Mass Queen. And back in the day, everybody used to play 2-base Zerg starts and, you know, a 3rd base eventually. But he would do it off of no gas at all, so maybe a little bit different. But, you know, double queen into double queen always gives me those vibes. But that is quite literally a decade ago, though, so if you don't remember those days, that's okay. I'm getting old. This is Grandpa Loco with his old, you know, StarCraft 2 stories, apparently. We have a lot of gas here, Erik, but no spending on it just yet. Yeah, so Lair starts up. I think he delayed the Lair in this game, mostly because that Reaper was still roaming around. Overlord speed once again, right at the same time as the Lair. So yeah, there's the Roach Warren once more coming down too. So normally if you want to go for a Roach push as Zerg, so say you want to go for like the build order that we see Dark play all the time with the Roach aggression, sometimes Roach aggression into a Link Flood, 3.5 minute Roach Warren is the normal time. So even though it kind of feels like a lot of game has already gone by, we're only really 3.5 minutes in. I mean, at least when that Roach Warren started. So this is very quick. Terrans don't normally acquire a 3rd command center by the time that queen drop comes in. So now the 3rd hedge goes down at about the 4-minute mark. Terran in the meantime, by the way, once again scouting here, so that's nice. Playing a very conventional 1-1-1. So since he's been scouting so much, I wouldn't be surprised if the triple CC opener is actually better against this particular start from the Zerg. Because it's not like Zerg is really going to be able to shut it down. But I think a lot of Zerg players will be facing off against Terrans with these conventional 1-1-1s, assuming the Terran player actively scouts, because this does feel a little bit scary as the Terran, right? So usually Terrans will be prioritizing units, I believe, over economy here. 3rd CC starts up at about 4.5 minutes. That is the standard time. Okay. So we have some Ravagers this time around. Link speed also a little bit quicker. Okay, so this time around, it does kind of look to me like this is going to be aggression. I don't even really know if we need to spread creep over here at all of these bases individually. I've kind of got the feeling we can just make creep tumors over here and then spread them in all of those spots. I don't know. I feel like spreading creep from here feels better than starting over here and then Terran just taking the expansion on the left side instead. Anyways, here we go. Creep timing attack once again coming up. So obviously, as soon as you get to Lair tech... Oh, he didn't actually finish them up. Okay, apparently... I didn't know that. Apparently, you can deny the creep tumor placement if you pick up the queens while they're still in the animation. I didn't know that. Anyways. This is an interesting little move. So, it really does feel like this is mostly just an army that's escorting this around. So, the Overseer also is right-clicked on top of the Drop Alert. So, the queens, yeah, will get detection against Cloaked Banshees. He's thought about it all. Really funny. Yeah, so there's really 2 separate parts to this, right? So Cyril specifically commented on the early game opener with the 15 hatch versus a 16 hatch and the 14 hatch and all of the comparisons. But then the follow-up, that's definitely not something we see all too often. This is something you could do off of a quote-unquote standard Zerg build too. But I guess when you're opening up 2-base, it just lines up a little bit nicer, right? And when you go for the 15-15, you do have to go, yeah, for a delayed 3rd hatchery, so you may as well. Okay, so now we do have a different follow-up, though. I think it's going to be Mutaling Bane here. No Evo Chamber upgrades or anything along those lines. Triple Banshee here as well is also very scary. So, same thing right here that Aquaron did. We have a Raven on the back of this for Terran. I actually think the Raven here is very clever. Where's that Overlord drop? Brenda! Ah, Brenda missed the evacuation. Sorry, Brenda. I'm sorry, Brenda. I didn't mean to make you walk, but tonight you're all the way off the creep. I gotta try. My freestyle rapping career is gonna be on a bit of a delay. Do you think it's nice to defend? Can you chase down... Can you chase down Banshees with a drop alert that has an overseer flying around? I don't think so. The acceleration speed on these bad boys is pretty slow. Their top speed is not bad, but their acceleration makes it difficult. Anyways, apparently we have the Terran trying his best to clear out some of the creep. But yeah, this is difficult right now. I don't think you should be pushing with 3-base Zerg into 2-base Terran. It just doesn't seem like a good plan. I think this is mostly viewed as something to delay the Terran player and to throw them off their game. I don't think you can really expect any more out of it than that. So just forcing out the Raven is already gonna make it kind of difficult for Terran to, you know, go for their normal builds. Like, look at the timing right here of 1-1, right? The gas that Terran normally spends on these upgrades earlier on now went into the Raven instead, which, again, throws them completely off of their builds. Very fun. Very fun. Okay. I don't know how long Erik has been playing this game for. I know he's been competing at a high level for quite a couple years right now. There's the 10 Muta transition, by the way, coming up. Let me have a quick look at his Liquipedia. There's probably some early tournament results. Okay, yeah, so his first tournament results were from 2015. Okay, so he's been playing for quite a while. Fair enough. I think right now, at least for these replays, it said that his MMR was 6,000, but I may be entirely wrong there. I'm gonna follow around the Mutas while I am Googling on the back of this. There's a great website called SC2 Revealed that basically allows you to look at everybody's MMR right now, even when they're playing under different IDs or barcodes or anything like that. So it says that on the European server, Erik's peak MMR has been 6.1k. Okay, fair enough. So right now he's sitting right about, yeah, a little over 6k. Fair enough. Okay. That is a very respectable amount of MMR, by the way. Like, that is apparently currently good enough for rank 36 Grandmaster. I think if you reach an extra 100 MMR, though, it's probably closer to, like, top 16. Not exactly sure. It's the outliers, right? So I brought up that Zero at 7.5k at some point. Yeah, there's some extreme outliers in StarCraft 2, and I guess there is in every sport and every esport as well. There's some guys that just seem to be neck and shoulders above everybody else. Neck and shoulders? Almost the correct saying. Head and shoulders, like the shampoo. But yeah, there's always outliers. Even within the top 50 on the ladder, like especially within the top 50 on the ladder, you have more than 1,000 MMR of difference, which is kind of nuts. 10 Overlords coming up right here for Erik. I don't think he's as happy with this particular follow-up as he did in the previous game. Yeah, this is a little sloppier. So I believe this replay was actually posted on the Discord server a little bit earlier than the one we just previously had a look at. So maybe he was still experimenting with the strategy at this point, and I guess he still is experimenting with the strategy. Anyways, Hive has once again started up. I think Roach Ravager Ling Bane into Mutas is kind of difficult. So Mutas, I don't know, maybe I'm the wrong person to ask, but I'm never a huge fan of Mutas against Terran. Maybe ask Ragnarok or DRG or something. They will strongly disagree. They love playing Mutas, but I personally am not a huge fan of Mutas just because it's so easy to accidentally lose them. But I guess as long as Terran sticks around on Marine Tank, it's pretty good. I actually think that Sad Boy should be transitioning right now towards Widow Mines with Bio, but anyhow. This is normally a push where Terran's, well, close to maxed out and with 2-2 upgrades. We're not quite there in this game, but also once more because both players are stacking up a little bit more cash than you might be ordinarily seeing on my YouTube channel, just because I try to post the absolute highest level of StarCraft 2. You kind of get used to it as well at some point, right? Where you think, yep, everybody has got 700 APM and that's the norm. That's what that's what everybody does. Turns out, no. No. Not quite the case. Alright, so the command centers actually end up going down there, which is very nicely done there by Erik, who's gonna be flying his units all the way back home right now. I don't think he needs to engage this. I actually think engaging this would be a mistake, because fighting off creep is so much more difficult. Yeah, try to poke with the mutas here. Maybe pick off a siege tank. There's a lot of... Oh my god, yeah, no, there's a lot of mutalisks right now. He's still doubling down on the mutas, by the way, going more than he actually needs. Now with the siege tanks, though, yeah, being taken out, or at least a couple of them being taken out, there's more than enough for the Zerg to overwhelm this. None of these Terran units are gonna be going home. There's a couple of reinforcing units desperately trying to, well, cross the map and shut all of this down. Obviously, Terran has been pushed into a position where he's gotta go for an all-in since those CCs ended up going down. Even the medevacs, they can't catch a break. There's a little medevac drop over here on the left side of the map too, but Queens are in time to transfuse. Mutas are gonna be able to kill the medevac, and Lings and Banes are clearing out the units on the ground. I think that is basically GG. Yeah, you know what? Maybe the Muta follow-up is pretty darn good, huh? To be fair, we don't normally see this many mutas. It feels a little funky to see this many mutas. I mean, this is not too crazy, but he seems to be very doubled down on just making as many as possible. And considering the earlier stages of the game, they still showed up really nice and quick. Yeah, man. Terran can't really stay on top of this anymore. When you have this many mutas flying around in your base and you're constantly playing catch-up, you're gonna slowly lose. Even the starport now ends up taking a lot of damage. The mutas can even start contesting the marines right now that came for the rescue. That was a pretty pricey trade right there to make, but as long as you stay on top of the production, more and more of these Terran units will just simply pop out of the structures and, well, get sniped right away. In the meantime, Zerg is maxing out. There's the medevac drop going into the main base. Okay, fair enough. This is the moment where Lynx could be moving in, though, and that's exactly... No, not what we've got going on. I saw some movement on the minimap, but that's the reinforcing mutas. Okay. My mom always told me it's not okay to play with my food, Erik. Playing it as safely as possible. Okay. Yeah, this is why I don't like playing mutas myself all too much, because it's still easy to mess up, but... Here we go. There's the main Zerg army ready to engage, and Erik obtains another win.